Hello everyone and a very good day to you. In today's video, we shall learn a prose lesson of Standard 7th English Balbharati textbook of the Maharashtra board. The name of the lesson is A Crow in the House. This story is taken from Ruskin Bond's book Grandfather's Private Zoo. It is a fun tale about a crow and how it comes to live with the narrator's family. It teaches us about the bond between humans and animals and gives us a deeper understanding of birds such as crows. So let's begin with the lesson A Crow in the House by Ruskin Bond from Grandfather's Private Zoo. The young crow had fallen from its nest and was fluttering about. Fluttering meaning to move in quick motions. Fluttering about on the road in danger of being crushed by a cart or a tonga or seized by a cat. Seized meaning to take using sudden force. When I picked it up and brought it home, it was in a sorry condition. Sorry condition means in a miserable condition. Beak gaping means the beak of the crow was left open as if it was almost dead, and head dropping, and we did not expect it to live. But grandfather and I did our best to bring it around. Bring it around means to bring it back to life. We fed it by prizing. Prizing means to use force to open something. Prizing its beak gently open with a pencil and pushing in a little bread and milk and then removing the pencil to allow it to swallow. So here the young boy and his grandfather are trying to give some food to this crow, as the crow was not able to eat on its own. They were trying to put bread and milk in its mouth and trusting it with a pencil. We varied this diet with occasional doses of grandmother's homemade plum wine. And as a result, the young crow was soon on the road to recovery. So here they not only fed the crow with milk and bread, but sometimes they would give the crow a drink of grandmother's homemade plum wine. And because they followed this diet, the crow was recovering from his condition. Before it was almost going to die, now with good care, the crow was getting well soon. He was offered his freedom, but he did not take it. Instead, he made himself at home in the house. So, when this crow was fully all right, they allowed the crow to fly out and go wherever it wanted. But the crow did not go. Instead, it lived in the boy's house as if it was his own house. The crow was quite comfortable here. Normally, we notice that birds, as soon as the cage is open, they fly out. But here, the crow remained. Grandmother, Aunt Mabel, and even some of grandfather's pets objected. But there was no way of getting rid of the bird. He took over the administration of the house. So, some others living in the house did not like the presence of this crow. because the crow was doing things as he liked and was creating a lot of trouble for them in the house. We were not sure that he was male, but we called him Caesar. Before long, Caesar was joining us at meal times. Besides finding his own grubs meaning a soft, thick worm-like larva, or beetles in the garden. So Caesar would have his meals along with the narrator's family, and so he would find and feed on the larva of beetles. He danced about on the dining table and gave us no peace until he had been given his small bowl of meat and soup and vegetables. So you can see how this crow was actually creating nuisance to this family, that he would not even allow them to eat in peace. Imagine if you are about to have your food and then just then a crow comes dancing on your table. So this crow would keep troubling them and until he got a bowl of soup with meat and vegetables. He was always restless, fidgeting about. Fidgeting means to make continuous movements about and small movements. Investigating things. So the crow wanted to touch and know everything in the house. He would hop across a table to empty a matchbox of its content or rip the daily paper to shreds or overturn a vase of flowers or tug at the tail of one of the dogs. So these were the things that Caesar would always fidget with. Like he would always do things like this to increase the family's blood pressure. That crow will be the ruin of us, grumbled grandmother, picking marigolds. Marigolds are the flowers that Caesar would drop from the vase. Picking marigolds off the carpet. Can't you keep him in a cage? So here grandmother would always get angry because of Caesar's actions, as she had to tidy up the things that Caesar would spoil. And she would often complain to grandpa that he should be kept in the cage. We did try keeping Caesar in cage, but he was so angry and objected with such fierce cawing and flapping that it was better for our nerves and peace of mind to give him the run of the house. So here we come to know that they even tried keeping Caesar in the cage, but it was of no use because he would create more noise and behave aggressively that the family thought it better to leave him running about in the house. He did not show any inclination. Inclination meaning a feeling that you want to do a particular thing. To join the other crows in the banyan tree. Grandfather said this was because he was really a jungle crow, a raven of sorts, and probably felt a little contemptuous. Contemptuous meaning expressing disapproval of every ordinary carrion crows. Carrion crows are crows that feed on decaying flesh. So here we know that Caesar did not want to join the other crows, as the other crows would sit on the banyan tree cawing and roaming about from here and there. So grandfather thought it may be not a normal crow, like it may not be a carrion crow, but it could be a jungle crow, and he would feel low about the other crows which we see around in the market.
But it seemed to me that Caesar, having grown used to living with humans on equal terms, had become snobbish. Snobbish means having or showing the attitude of people who think they are better than other people and did not wish to mix with his own kind. So here Caesar had kind of developed an attitude where he started feeling that he is better than the other crows around him. So he only wanted to be with humans and not with the other birds of his kind.
He would even squabble with Harold. Squabble meaning to argue in a noisy way about something that is not very important. With Harold, the hornbill. The hornbill is this bird that you can see in the picture. Perching on top of Harold's cage. Perching meaning to sit on or near the edge of something. Perching on top of Harold's cage, he would peck at the big bird's feet, whereupon Harold would swear and scold and try to catch Caesar through the bars. So he would trouble this bird as well, either sit on the bird's cage or peck at its feet. Okay, and in return, this bird would also want to try to catch Caesar, but Caesar is out of the cage and Harold is inside the cage. In time, Caesar learned to talk a little, as ravens sometimes do, in a cracked, throaty voice. He would sit for hours outside the window, banging on the glass with his beak and calling, "Hello, hello." So, this is another activity that Caesar would do. He would always sit near the window and try to talk in the cracked voice as certain birds do. So, this is another activity of Caesar. He seemed to recognize the click of the gate when I came home from school and would come to the door with a hop, skip, and jump, saying, "Hello, hello." So, here, as if the crow, Caesar, would greet the narrator when he would just come from school. I had also taught him to sit on my arm and say, "Kiss, kiss," while he placed his head gently against my mouth. So, this is another thing that the narrator had taught Caesar, which Caesar picked up quite soon. On one of Aunt Mabel's visits, Caesar alighted on her arm. Alighted on her arm means he flew and came, he flew and sat on her arm and cackled, "Kiss, kiss." Aunt Mabel was delighted and possibly flattered and leaned forward for a kiss. So, this is what the narrator had actually taught Caesar. When Caesar would come near the narrator, he would teach Caesar how to say "kiss, kiss." So, your Aunt Mabel probably wanted a kiss from Caesar. But what happened? Caesar's attention shifted to my aunt's gleaming spectacles, and thrusting at them with his beak, he knocked them off. So he was quite curious to know what Aunt Mabel was actually wearing, which was her spectacles, and he knocked the spectacles down. Aunt Mabel was never a success with the pets. Pet or pest? Grandmother insisted that Caesar was a pest, in spite of his engaging habits. If he had restricted his activities to our own house, it would not have been so bad. But he took to visiting neighboring houses and stealing pens and pencils, hair ribbons, combs, keys, shuttlecocks, toothbrushes, and false teeth. So here that is the reason grandmother is calling him, is he a pet or a pest? Because normally pests, they create nuisance in the house. They don't allow people to live peacefully. So grandmother insisted he is not a pet, he is a pest. Caesar is a pest because of his habits. He would not even, if he would create trouble for only the people living in the house, it would be a different thing. But now he was troubling the neighbors also, like robbing their things. And what else would he do? He was especially fond of toothbrushes and made a collection of them on top of the cupboard in my room. So whatever things he would steal from the neighbor's house, he would go and keep it on the narrator's cupboard. Most of the neighbors were represented in a house by a toothbrush. Toothbrush sales went up that year. Why? Because Caesar was robbing the toothbrushes of the neighbors and keeping it on the narrator's cupboard. And so they would always go to the shop to buy another new toothbrush. And so did grandmother's blood pressure. Caesar spied on children going into the banya's shop and often managed to snatch sweets from them as they came out. So this is another activity of Caesar. He would go and try to snatch the sweets from the children who would come to the shops. Clothes pegs fascinated him. This is the picture of the clothes peg that we put on clothes when we put them to dry. Neighbors would return from the bazaar to find their washing lying in the mud and no sign of the pegs. These two found their way on top of my cupboard. So this is what Caesar would do. He would try to remove the pegs from the clothes, and once the pegs are out from the string, the clothes would be fallen down and poor neighbors had to wash them again and buy the new pegs. And all of these items, that is the clothes peg or everything, would be found on the narrator's cupboard. It was Caesar's gardening activities that finally led to disaster. Once he was helping himself to our neighbor's beans when a stick was flung at him, breaking his leg. I carried the unfortunate bird home, and grandfather and I washed and bandaged his leg as best as we could, but it would not mend. So now Caesar, what he did was, he as usual would roam about, trouble others. So he had gone to the neighboring beans field, and at once while he wanted to pluck those beans with his beak, the neighbor threw a stick at him, and in return Caesar was hurt. His leg was hurt. But grandfather carried the bird and they tried to bandage him as before. Caesar hung his head and no longer talked. He grew weaker day by day, refusing to eat. An occasional sip of grandmother's homemade wine was all that kept him going. One morning, I found him dead on the sofa, his legs stiff in the air. Poor Caesar. His antisocial habits had led to his early end. So here what we know about Caesar was that grandmother was trying to all her best, okay, to bring Caesar back to good health, but Caesar was not getting any better. And one fine morning, what they find, Caesar was actually dead, lying on the sofa. And what led to his state was his antisocial habits, his habits of going and fidgeting and troubling others. I dug a shallow grave in the garden and buried him there, along with all the toothbrushes and clothes peg he had taken so much trouble to collect. So here this was the end of Caesar, the bird, the crow, and this is what the narrator did after Caesar had passed away. They dug a small grave in the compound itself, in the garden itself, and also buried other things that Caesar had stolen from the neighbors and kept it on the which he had kept it on the narrator's cupboard. So this was a small part of the story taken from the book Grandfather's Private Zoo. The novel is written by Ruskin Bond. So this was the end of the lesson. What we learn from this lesson is the bond that Caesar had with the family. There was a close connection. Obviously we also have pets in our house, and normally when the pets stay with us, we also build a bond, a connection with them, whether they are birds, whether they are animals, or whether they are a fish. We create a bond with them, a liking for them. So whatever, though Caesar created nuisance for the family, but whatever happened, what the family tried to take as much as care of Caesar and tried to bring him back to health. Okay, so this was the end of the lesson, a crow in the house. If you find this video beneficial, then please subscribe to my channel. Also like and share the video. Do comment on, your comments are very important, and also click on the bell icon if you if you want to be updated of my upcoming videos. Thank you and have a nice day.